There you go. Okay. Hey, Katrina, we're live. So if you would like to start, I'll let you start and then we'll go from there.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Ben, I see your message in the chat that you're having issues with your microphone. So that is totally fine to use the chat for anybody else online as well. You can use the chat as well, but we're going to have a discussion session later on that you'll be able to unmute your microphone and we'll have a good discussion, but the chat is open as well. Sorry, let me just respond in the chat there. Thank you for joining us. We still have a few people coming in on Zoom. We've got about 20 people online and I see quite a good group in the room. My name is Katrina McCullough. I'm with GHD. I'm a facilitator and community engagement specialist, and I'll be facilitating the discussion later on. But to start us off, I will turn it over to Thomas to do some introductions to this project. Go ahead, Thomas.
Hi, I'm Thomas Zabo. I'm the Solid Waste and Recycling Compliance Coordinator, and I've worked at Warren County for about 1.5 years now. This evening's meeting will provide you with some context on the study currently being done on the county and also provide some information on what other municipalities have done in regards to organics. This is really a good informational session, and also we're looking forward to getting some questions and finding out some more input from the community.
Do the introductions. Is that what you're going to do, or you want me to take over from here?
Do you want to hop in on?
Yeah, sure, I will. So I'm going to kind of get to the project team in a minute. But what I wanted to kind of start off and tell everybody is how we got to this point, or how the county got to where we are today. So the county got to this point over the past few years since New York State has increased its support of development of organics. The state recently passed regulations that are applicable to large food waste generators only. The state's development in these regulations is what started the conversations around organics, and specifically organics in Warren County, and resulted in this project. The current study underway will result in an organics management plan that determines the best course of action for managing organic waste in Warren County. The plan will not only create a roadmap for the cost-effective decisions to support the management of organic waste, but additionally support grant applications to New York State DEC and the EPA that offers fundings and opportunities for this program or this type of project. So with that being said, I'll kind of go really quickly. I'm not going to probably name everybody, but the project team consists of Warren County DPW, an advisory committee, which there's quite a few people that are here on the advisory committee, as well as GHD Consulting. As Thomas said, this is Thomas Zabo. He's my solid waste coordinator. I'm Kevin Hajos. I'm the superintendent of public works. For our local municipal staff, we have representatives from Lake George as well as from Bolton. And then, of course, we have members of the Zero Waste Committee and elected officials. And I will turn it back over to David, who is with GHD Consulting, to start the next portion of the program. David?
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. I think Katrina might jump in quickly and talk just a little bit about the logistics of tonight's meeting, and then I'll take it from there. So Katrina.
Thanks, David. And I just went back a slide just so everyone can see that what we're expecting tonight. So David's presentation is going to be about 15 or 20 minutes, and then we've got the remaining portion of the hour till about 7 o'clock for Q&A and discussion. We did this intentionally because having a shorter presentation, because the purpose of tonight is really to hear from you and get your thoughts on a composting program or organics management. So we're really hoping for a good, robust discussion. With that in mind, everybody should be muted right now. And I'll ask you to stay muted until after the presentation. If you have any questions that come up, please, I would ask for you to please hold them until the end. We do have quite a few people online and in person. So when we get there, I'm going to use the raise hand function just so we can make sure that we get to everybody. But I'll explain that again at the end. When we get there as well, you are welcome to turn on your video cameras if you haven't already done so. I think that's it from my end in terms of housekeeping. So David, I will turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Katrina. Nice to see everyone online and in person tonight. We appreciate the opportunity to present on this study. So again, my name is David Wright. I'm a licensed professional engineer in New York State and have a technical background in the permitting, design, construction, and operation of organic processing facilities, including composting as a technical focus. For this project, I have the privilege of serving as GHG's project manager and represent a team of individuals who are actively involved in this study. GHD is an employee-owned engineering business. I'm personally located in our offices in Syracuse, New York, and our aim is to create lasting community benefit in partnership with our clients. First, I want to say it's a real privilege to participate in this study, and we're thankful to have had the opportunity to work alongside Warren County DPW, as well as members of the advisory committee. As Thomas already mentioned, Warren County believes that a composting program would provide local businesses and residents a way to sustainably manage food and yard waste and divert this material from landfills. The DPW is proactively seeking to understand options to achieve this outcome. Before we begin the presentation, we want to recognize that Warren County received funding from the Climate Smart Community Grant Program that's administered by the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, or the DEC, to develop this study, and the grant refers to the program as an organics management plan. As we look into why Warren County would undertake this study, we'd like to also recognize two legislative drivers, which Kevin already introduced in brief. Next slide, please. These two legislative drivers were in the county's the county became aware of these legislative drivers more than 2 years ago. The first is the New York State Food Donation and Food Scraps Recycling Laws, passed in 2019 and took effect on January 1st, 2022. The requirements include identification of designated food scrap generators, or DFSGs for short. In Warren County, there are currently 12 entities identified by the law, and the law specifically exempts some sectors, including K-12 schools, hospitals, nursing homes, adult care facilities, and generators in New York City. What is an aspect of the law is that if there's a recycling facility that can accept food scraps in 25 miles of a large organic recycler, then there's an obligation to divert that material to a facility if the generation is more than 2 tons of wasted food per week. In addition, there's a preference under the law to donate edible food to food recovery efforts or to feed people or animals as a first priority. In addition to the food donation, food scraps recycling law, there's also the New York State Climate Act, which is called the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, or CLCPA for short. The Climate Act includes emissions resulting from the solid waste industry and includes landfills. We're highlighting this information as a framework of some of the requirements and the county's interest to support the community in meeting the objectives of the law. Next, I'll present the scope of our current study. The Organics Management Plan aims to include a set of recommended interrelated strategies to meaningfully increase organics recovery, diversion from landfill, and conversion to compost. This is a goal that was set forth by DPW as they solicited competitive bids for a consultant to support their study. The Organics Management Plan will achieve the following objectives. First, define and assess the present-day status of organic waste management in the county. Engage the input and feedback of stakeholders, including the community, in a meaningful way. Consider composting technologies most suited for the county's specific local context and needs. Evaluate a pilot program for household organics composting, which includes backyard composting, curbside collection of organic material, as well as the ability to host drop-off sites for food scrap collection. The study will also evaluate the feasibility of a composting facility of sufficient size and capacity for the chosen technology, and compile the findings into a strategic plan, including recommendations, costs, and the implementation roadmap. As we were tasked with developing a program to achieve those outcomes, we landed at a simple six-part process over a 6-month period. So this bar chart illustrates the schedule that's in process for our study. As you can see, we've already been undertaking an existing conditions and technology review that's well and underway and has been informing a baseline and discussions with the project advisory committee until this point in time. What we're embarking on now is a community engagement and outreach, including a community survey, of which we're going to discuss the logistics of your ability to access the survey at the end of this presentation. That's a way for the community to provide valuable input to the framing of and the outcomes of this study. As a third step, we'll be preparing a comprehensive study report that will then be presented to the community as part of a second engagement session. Following that engagement session, the study will be finalized, soliciting input from the Board of Supervisors and the DPW committee, and finally presented to the DEC in meeting the objectives of the grant. What we'll now dive into are aspects of the data we've been reviewing and illustrating the quantity of organic materials currently generated in Warren County. In other words, Warren County asked GHD to consider what size composting facility might be needed. Again, this study is focused on food scraps and yard waste and the potential for compostable products. In presenting this data, one thing to note is that a starting point for discussion purpose is based on a lot of assumptions, and the county will have opportunities to refine this data set as they move forward in the program. Based on an assumed waste characterization from the DEC, which looks at a rural community, including one of which is included Warren County in that definition, there's approximately 25,000 tons of food scraps generated each year in Warren County. This is about 33% of the total trash that's currently managed to disposal or incineration in the county. Warren County is interested to do something different with that. And one of the ways that they're evaluating opportunities is through municipal composting facility. The bar chart in the right of the screen represents a further breakdown of that 33% subtotal or the 25,000 tons per year. This is being used for our understanding and defining what is the basis of conceptual design for a large-scale municipal composting facility. With an understanding of how much material is generated, we like to also highlight what Warren County is already doing, which is quite significant. There are existing composting programs in the county. However, there are no county-managed or centralized large-scale commercial facilities managing compost in the county. Existing residential and businesses that manage compost in the county include the Adirondack Worm Farm, SUNY Adirondack Composting, Tamarack Compost, which is in the adjacent Washington County, and several transfer stations that proactively manage their yard waste material. If there are others not identified on the list, please let us know. That's information that we would like to hear from the community if you're doing something that we've not yet identified. As we have considered the existing programs, we're now going to take a look at several case studies of similar sized municipal and rural contexts in New York State that have been implementing successful composting programs. The first example is the town of Bethlehem. It's an existing windrow composting operation that manages yard waste. Recently, within the last 2 years, they've begun to introduce food scraps to their operation. That's actually continued to be a sustainable operation with the introduction of food scraps and continues to produce a very high quality compost product that's available for local use to either landscapers as well as to the residents. The town generates revenue from the selling of their compost for both commercial and non-residential uses. The next example is looking at a similar program, but located in Ulster County. This is operated and owned by the Ulster County Resource Recovery Agency. It was first constructed in 2012 as a small pilot project and then expanded. A common theme for these facilities is to implement a pilot that demonstrates the success of the program, the viability of the commercial operation to the community, and the ability for the community to take benefit of using finished compost that's produced. In specific, in Ulster County, residents can bring food and yard waste to a drop-off location and then is collected by a private hauler that works in partnership with the county. An aerated static pile method, which is one technology, is currently used for composting food scraps. This keeps the material in an aerobic environment, protecting and mitigating odors and mitigating the potential nuisances that result from vectors or vermin. Since 2012, there's been more than 19,000 tons of organics manufactured and over 10,000 tons of compost produced. Switching gears a bit, the next example is going to look at a community scale program, actually in New York City. One of the reasons that we wanted to bring in an urban context is we recognize that there are local areas in Warren County that have an urban setting or quasi-urban setting, in that there are communities that include institutions, universities, and schools. So this curbside composting program in New York City currently composts and collects food scraps, including food soil paper. There's been extensive involvement and participation by the community members at large, and there are several community gardens involved in the program. In addition, the New York City Department of Sanitation trains and equips what they call master composters to administer the program. A lot of the finished compost is used for green infrastructure locally, and there's a aggressive and interest to educate and reach out to the community with the available tools that the composting facilities and programs provide. Finally, the last example we'll highlight is known as the Onondaga County Resource Recovery Agency's Amboy Compost Site. This project was constructed and expanded in 2013 to 2014. Prior to that time, there was almost a 10-year history where the site underwent pilot studies and composting of yard waste. It's actually located at what was a former airport facility in the county. The daily capacity is equivalent to what Warren County may need, and one of the technologies that they employ at this facility is also aerated static pile composting. I think one of the core visuals as presented by this image is that it's a clean operation, and one of the benefits that they provide to residents is that they can purchase what they call a season pass for $20, and then pick up an unlimited amount of, drop off an unlimited yard waste amount and take at least 6 cubic yards of compost for their personal use. The facility has been operating now for about 10 years. And with that said, I'll like to take the opportunity to hand this presentation back to Katrina, who's going to introduce our community engagement session and the current community survey. So thank you, Katrina, over to you.
Thanks, David. That was very, very helpful. So what you see on the screen here, so I'm pleased to say that the survey has been open for a couple of weeks, and we've gotten over 80 responses from the community, which is great to see. I think that might be a record in terms of feedback for this type of a survey in Warren County. So I've got the link up on the screen there. You can just go to bit.ly/Warren County Organics, or if you've got your phone handy in the screen, you can just take a photo of that QR code, or of course it's posted on Warren County's website as well. So we're going to keep that survey open for another few weeks to capture that input. And then, as David mentioned, the team is going to go away and take that input and consider it as part of developing that organics management plan. And then this team will be coming back to you in probably kind of May, June timeframe to present that draft plan, and then it goes to the Board of Supervisors in June. So open it up now to any questions from the audience. But as I said, this is also an opportunity for us to hear from you. We're not here to present an actual the draft plan. It's still being prepared, and that's because we want to make sure that your values and perspectives are incorporated into it. So, as we're talking tonight, some things to think about, and if you've done the survey, you'll recognize some of these questions. Some things to think about and that we would like your input on is, do you compost right now? Do you compost your food and your yard waste? And if you don't, why not? What are your barriers to doing that? Do you think you and your neighbors would consider participating in a compost program if Warren County offered it? Have you seen compost programs in other communities? What do you like or don't like? And do you have any questions or concerns that you would want this team to answer? So I'll open it up to the floor now. I do see someone on the telephone. So obviously you can't see our screen. Assuming you are just on the telephone and not on a computer or mobile device, I will ask you that if you do want to ask a question, then you can press *9 to raise your hand. I will see that, and then I will be able to unmute you. So again, that's if you're on the telephone and not on a mobile device, then you can press *9. For everybody else on Zoom, You should have a raise hand icon on your on the Zoom bar, so you can use that to raise your hand and put yourself in the queue for this discussion. Thomas, since I can't see people in the room, I'll rely on you to tell me if there's anybody in the room who would like to provide their thoughts and perspectives. So I'll start with the folks on Zoom first. We'll kind of go back and forth between Zoom and in person. This is only my second time doing a true hybrid meeting, so we'll see how it goes. I'm sure it'll be great though. So Joe, I see you've raised your hand. Oh, and sorry, one more housekeeping item. If you are in the room, there's a member of the media, he put in the chat, Tom put in the chat that if you are in the room and you are saying something, he wouldn't mind if you would just introduce yourself, just provide your name, just so we can capture that. Joe, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Joe Wolf. This is my husband, Jim, and we're in Chestertown. I wondered if you could clarify what constitutes yard waste in this effort, and also would this composting be year round?
Good question. So what constitutes yard waste and would composting be year round? David, can you answer either of those?
Yeah, so we've been discussing with the advisory committee until this point what types of materials would be acceptable to a large scale facility. And the definition of yard waste that we've arrived at until now includes leaves, wood clippings, wood debris up to a certain size. So what you would typically have coming from a backyard type of landscape activity. And the second question, as it relates to would the composting program be year round? That probably depends on which elements of the program, but our current understanding is that it would be a year-round operation with certain seasonal variations impacting, the operation of the facility, whether that's cold weather or similar, or holiday shutdown.
Yeah, we compost here, but probably 5.5 months of the year, because after that it doesn't work well at all in our yard. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, Joey, because in the survey we have asked people that question if they compost, but that's a good point that even if you do compost in your backyard, that option might not be available to you in the winter months. So thanks for that perspective.
And Katrina, if I missed it, also wood materials would be composted as well.
Okay.
Under yard waste. Thank you.
William, you are next on my list.
So I live in the city of Glens Falls and I would love to compost, but it's just me. And for the amount I would generate, paying like $25 a month to have it picked up and taken to Kingsbury is a little high. But I'm wondering, as I understand, for the large producers, the restaurants and such, they had to start composting food waste as of January 1st. And so I'm wondering where the restaurants in the city send their stuff now. And for just regular people like me, I understand, like the city of Albany and Troy, they have local places that you can just take your bucket of compost and someone collects that. It doesn't seem like we have to reinvent the wheel, whether something like that is coming my way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so let's deal with that in two parts. Dealing with the large producers second, but first in terms of the yourself. So what I'm hearing from you is cost is definitely a factor, and if the pickup collection were to cost, then that would be a factor. But it sounds like you would be open to potentially taking your own compost to like a drop-off location or somewhere where you could do that.
That's precisely right, Katrina.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, and then in terms of the large producers, David, can you speak to that?
Yeah, I think DEC, the Department of Environmental Conservation, has done a really great job being proactive in identifying and supporting those entities that meet that definition to recycle their food scraps or residual food from their various manufacturing processes. So I think the educational resources exist, and I think part of what the county seeks to do with this study is provide support for those businesses to comply.
Hey, Dave,
Are they complying now?
Have a clarification, if I may, Katrina.
Yeah, go ahead, Tracy.
The state law has actually a big loophole, and if there is no appropriate facility within 25 miles, then there's no requirement that those restaurants, cafeterias, food processors separate out and divert their food waste for composting. So at this point, there's no requirement in effect for most of Warren County because there's no facility. Does that clarify it, William?
Yeah, thank you, Tracy.
Yeah, David, that I'm assuming Tracy is correct in what she said there.
Yeah, I've gone to
There's
the
no requirement right there.
DEC. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, William. There's a couple of people who have joined after the presentation. So I just want to pause for a moment and say thank you to those who have joined and welcome. We had a short 15-minute presentation from David, and now we're having an open discussion on the potential for an organics or composting program in Warren County. I've got some discussion questions up on the screen to think about, but also open to your questions or comments in general on a composting program. I don't see anybody else on Zoom with their hand up. So Thomas, I'll maybe go to the room and see if there's anybody there who has any questions, comments, thoughts, or perspectives.
Katrina, there are. So we'll start here in the room. I'll just try to go around the table. Go ahead and please introduce yourself. And
Yes, my name is Dee Dee DeSico Craft, and I'm a volunteer with Zero Waste Warren County and also a resident of Lake George. And I just wanted to do a little further clarification on the restaurants and the law by DEC, because it also says that it's they have to generate 2,000 pounds a week on average before they become, before it becomes necessary that they handle their food waste or food discards in this manner, where they have the donation part and the composting part, and that plus the fact that a facility has to be available within 25 miles. So it's kind of a two-part thing. So some of the restaurants might not meet it anyway if they're smaller and don't generate that kind of food waste.
Dee Dee, I'll clarify that a little bit more. There are 12 generators in Warren County per DEC's list.
Yeah.
So but since we do not have a facility within the 25 miles, those 12 generators do not have to participate in any of this. They're not required to.
Yep, understood.
Go ahead, Harrison. If it's part of the same conversation, I want to keep it going.
Yeah, so of those so I understand the hospital. Tracy mentioned a big loophole of you're not within 25 miles, you don't have to worry about it. The other big loophole is who's excluded, namely the hospitals and schools. But my question is, is there a way that we can incentivize the hospital, which is a huge producer? I'm assuming the 12 producers are mostly grocery stores. Is that not correct?
Yeah, David, you were in, that was Thomas too. Do you guys recall, is it just grocery stores? I thought maybe the Sagamore might have been one of the producers as well.
I think there's a few hotels in Lake George as well.
Yes.
And maybe one or two restaurants.
But that it doesn't include any of the schools or the hospital.
Correct.
So it's really more than that. And if had a facility, then like South Glens Falls, if they had a supermarket, they would have to, because they would be within 25 miles, depending on where we located it.
Right.
And then Hudson Falls, same with supermarkets, they would have to use our facility as well. So the size, I'm just talking about the size, is we have to consider both of those things when we try to size it.
Yeah, and each county has those generators. We're just in Warren County, there's right now 12.
Right.
That DEC list on their website is the 12 generators. Yes, Saratoga County has them. Washington County has them as well. But for us, there's the 12 that we're talking about. But you're right, they do exclude the school, the hospital. And if this facility comes to fruition, then we should, again, incentivize them to use that facility as well.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
And Katrina, I'm going to go back to DDT.
Yeah.
Did you have anything more?
Yeah, no, I think I was kind of, I'm glad you asked that question because I was also curious about the fact that there are a number of organizations that are exempt. But when we're going, and I think that 25,000 ton number probably included everybody because it was kind of a general DEC number.
Yes.
But yeah, as going forward, those folks and even the small restaurants, you would want to be considering them as being participants, even though they don't necessarily fall under the law.
Generate that,
So
right.
that's probably happening. Thank you.
Anyone else in the room? Nobody?
I don't see any other hands up on the Zoom participant list. Is there anybody else? Oh, now I've got a couple. Now you're on. Now I've got 4. Great. Okay, I'm gonna go in order that they show up on my screen, which is I think the order that people raise their hand, but no guarantees. But so I'll just call on people one by one. So Teresa, you are up.
Thank you. I do compost a little bit less than a year, so I'm actually new to it. It's not a full year cycle, and I fully support the countywide effort. I don't use pesticides on my lawn, and I don't or in my garden. And if I were to get compost, I guess a concern would be to have composted material with pesticides, given the large amount of pesticides that are used on lawns. So that would be a concern.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, that's a good perspective. Thanks for that comment, Teresa. David, do you have any response to that or just something that we can take note of and consider for the organics management plan?
Yeah, I think definitely taking note of that is appropriate, and I'd say that it's something members of the advisory committee have also expressed caution. So thank you.
Thank you.
Next, and I know there's a few people in the room that want to speak as well. So I'll do a couple of people from Zoom and then we'll go back to the room. So Tracy, you are next on my list.
Thank you. I just want to say real quickly that a lot of the purpose of the plan is to get some guidance on developing a composting facility. I'm sorry that I don't think that's me. The echo.
I think it's the room, so I'm just going to mute you guys for a minute. Go ahead, Tracy.
Yeah, so I just want to emphasize that I'm sorry I missed part of the presentation. I was at another meeting and I couldn't get out of it because I was hosting it and people kept talking. But yeah, so I'm on the advisory committee. It seems like part of the goal is to get some guidance on developing a composting facility that could serve large and small generators, residential, restaurants, and the bigger generators. So I want to make that clear. And also, I do have a concern. I have a very strong concern about contamination. And, it might come from, there might be another question that would address this, but I think whatever is developed needs to have some strong rules and strong procedures to prevent the quality of the compost from merging with garbage. We want to keep out packaging. We want to keep out things that will create microplastics and PFAS, forever compound chemicals in the compost, because no one's going to want compost like that. Thanks.
Thanks, Tracy. Yeah, and definitely hearing that from others as well. I'll go to Tom next on Zoom. Tom, you can go ahead and unmute yourself. Tom Randall.
Okay. You're probably aware that Albany handed out thousands of home composting black bins with slide out trays, and also with a kind of a home, something you can keep under the sink to put those food scraps in. And it's worked well in a household in Albany that I'm frequent often. And because it's black, it soaks up the sun, re-radiates the heat into the compost, and into the processes compost fast, summer or winter. And there's also a very interesting little pickup campaign going on by a kind of a hippie thing called Radix, RADIX, and there's a bicycle powered box, huge aluminum box on the back of this that's hauled around by a guy on a bicycle, and he pedals around town, and he stops wherever there's a green can, and he picks up the compost and takes it to their facility, and they charge I think they charge $20 a month for that service, just to pick it up and then handle it and compost it. But other people, because of thousands of those big drums were handed out, are doing it right in their backyard and using it for their garden, and that allows people to keep the compost organic if they choose to. So that's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. Yes, those options are definitely on the table, though I haven't heard of the bicycle one, so I think that's something we're going to have to look into. But definitely the backyard composting as well. So thanks for that. Appreciate those comments.
The bicycle is because of carbon, being carbon smart.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, Warren County is pretty big, right? So I don't know who wants to bike around the whole of Warren County, but
I couldn't believe it when I saw him. It's like, are you kidding me? That bicycle's hauling that entire huge box behind it that's 8 feet tall and 10 feet long. Oh my God, that's crazy.
Holy smokes. Okay, I'll go to Sarah next on Zoom, and then we'll go back to the meeting room there. So Sarah, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, I'm Sarah Gebby Misek. I live in Warrensburg. We compost our own household food waste and yard waste. We add to it year round. It just doesn't actually break down during the winter. And I'm really in support of a countywide program. I think we would continue to use our own backyard compost on our own, but I think it's a great idea.
Great, thank you, Sarah. So let me unmute the laptop. Hopefully I'm doing this right. Tammy, Thomas, and Kevin, are there any others in the room that would like to share their perspectives?
I wanted to emphasize the fact that we are supporting and trying to complete a community compost facility, municipal, in Ulster County. I don't believe they allow people to drop off there. So we also need to support pickup and drop off locations, and specifically backyard composting. It really works well. You don't end up with a lot of compost that you have to figure out what to do with, and you can certainly share it with neighbors. And the town of Queensbury is running a compost bin sale with pickup on Friday, April 21st from 4:30 to 6 o'clock. It's not affiliated with the town, other than the Climate Smart Community Committee is actually promoting it. And it's all handled on the website. You pay directly to them for it, and then you come and pick it up. So as many people as we can get to backyard compost right now, while we're figuring out all these other components, it's so critical.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thanks.
Ron, did you have?
Ron Conover, Supervisor, Town of Bolton. I'm also Chairman of the Public Works Committee here in Warren County. I just put out there that a lot of the green waste is coming to our transfer stations. That's not coming to our transfer stations is being picked up privately. That's what's coming to our transfer station is largely a residential drop off. And so exactly what those numbers are, I'm not sure. I would imagine as we improve our numbers going forward, we'll have a better idea of exactly what that is. I wonder though, the areas that do fall under the state law where the major generators are taking waste to compost facilities, where are they and how are they operating and how's that model working? And how does that model compare to a county run type of operation? Do we, I just raise these as questions that I think need to be addressed. You know, do we have a plan that really looks to move the major generators in a private direction and take the residential and move that into a residential direction? Do we lump all of this together into one? That's would be the kind of thing, the kind of information that I would be interested in wanting to see. I know we do have some companies in our area that are in the composting business. They may be small, but they're a burgeoning type of operations. And I think having a dialogue with them, I think would be very helpful. I mean, is this an industry that a local industry that we can grow, that we can help grow? And do we need to help create the market to help them grow? These would be the kind of questions that I think we should try to ask and hopefully answer. And I'm very excited about this process. I think we've come a long way. We've got much further to go. I don't need to tell everyone the significance of this. I mean, the idea of recycling up to or more than 30% of our garbage by weight is no small item. That's a significant item. It's been more costly by the year. As you know, there are other facets to this plan that we're working on, which include recycling, a county recycling center, other kinds of things. And so I'm very excited. I'm very happy with the turnout here this evening. And hopefully out of this, we can develop a plan that best serves our region.
Thanks for that. I just want to give Thomas an opportunity. I know there was a lot of questions in there that you can't answer right now, but if there was anything that you wanted to speak to in terms of other large generators or other communities.
Yeah, I think we definitely have a few good other municipal examples out there, and I think they're definitely worth researching into. And kind of using the lens of context that Supervisor Conover mentioned. So I think we'll definitely gain some more info in regards to that in the coming months.
Go ahead, David.
Katrina, we have, or is David going to speak?
I was just going to add something that's recently published this week is a report on the status of the law that's presented by the DEC to the Office of the Governor and the New York State legislators. So like I said, that report on the status of the food donation and food scrap recycling law is just made it publicly available on the 13th. So we can certainly circulate link, and that would be helpful for those interested to review. But thanks, Katrina.
Thanks, David. Yeah, you've got, is there someone else in the room that wanted to speak as well?
There is, Katrina. Thank you. And David, I wanted to say thank you. I got the email from DEC on that as well. So that is definitely a link that we can share with everybody here at the table and maybe everybody on Zoom. We have next Harrison Freer in the
So just a comment on Ulster County was doing this before there was a law, and they justified it and made it commercially useful because it was cheaper for the city to bring their organic waste to Ulster County and let them compost it than it was to take it to their landfill up. And so it was just a matter of dollars and cents. It was more economical for the large producers in the city to give that organic capability, and the Ulster County people are making money for the county taxpayers by taking the city's commercial organics. And to just follow up to Kathy's point, they are also able to take more than I can in my backyard, because they are able to properly handle meat kind of stuff that we in the backyard composting can't do for a variety of good reasons. But they've developed a capability, and that capability keeps getting better, so that they can handle more than we can in our backyard composting.
Yeah, thanks for that. Gary, I see you do have your hand up. Before I go to you, Ben had a question in the chat actually, and I know he can't unmute himself, so I'm gonna ask it to David. So Ben is asking, he's saying that presentations he joined last year did a nice job discussing the economics of successful organics and compost management plans. And he asks if this year's report will share information on cost and revenue estimates of a Warren County plan. I am certain that there will be elected officials that will want to make this the focus of their deliberations.
Yeah, so I'd say that the perspective or the way that we're viewing this question is cost is as an essential element to the study. I'll say that we're probably just tipping, getting at the tip of the iceberg as to some of the complexities on how cost is currently managed for waste to disposal in the county. But that's the intention of the plan, is to consider potential costs of a new facility, as well as cost of backyard composting programs or curbside organics collection.
Thanks, David. Ben, I hope that answered your question. So Gary, I will go to you next. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, actually, this is Debbie Carl, and I live on the east shore of Schroon Lake in the townhome community. And I'd be interested in community composting. Our population grows greatly during the summertime, and that's true of all around Schroon Lake. I'd be most interested in a pickup program or a convenient drop-off program. And I think there'd be many people like me that would participate.
That's great. Thanks. Thanks, Debbie. But it sounds like convenience is the key there.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. And I think there's another comment in the room. Is that right?
There is.
Yeah. All right. So I'm Barbara Jodry. I'm chair of the Adirondack Compost Education Council, on the Zero Waste Committee as well, and the advisory board. And my hope with this plan is that there's serious consideration of not just building the right solution for the area, but the startup costs for building that, and how that could be differentiated, and what options are for startup costs. Like, if it's private, public, joint, and funds available that are not available if it's only a private solution. And then also from the startup costs all the way to how do you maintain this facility? What are the costs of that? And does it need to remain public, private, or could it go solely private? If some of that could be addressed in the plan, I think that would be very beneficial for us.
Thanks for that. So yeah, David already talked about costs being addressed in the plan. David, will you kind of differentiate between the operational and capital costs?
Yeah, so one of the aspects DPW asks us to consider is the potential methods and models for both development of the infrastructure, like Barbara said, as well as the operations. So that could be realized through a municipal, a fully public project, as well as through the opportunities for a public-private partnership. So we are looking at operating models as a component of the study.
Thanks, David. Is there any other comments in the room?
I don't see any.
Okay. Anybody else on Zoom? I know there's a few people on Zoom that we haven't heard from, and we still have 10 minutes or so at least. I'm not sure how long Thomas and Kevin plan to stay in the room, but certainly we want to hear, even if you're not an avid composter, if you're just here to kind of listen and learn and see what this is all about, I'd encourage you as well to put up your hand and share your perspectives.
Katrina, this is Kevin. I'm going to kind of add on a little bit for the individuals in the room and on Zoom on where we came from and where we are today. So 2 years ago now, 2 years ago, we completed our local solid waste management plan. And one of the components of that management plan was to move possibly towards composting. And that's hence why we are where we're at today. Looking and going back to what Ron said, and Ron, thank you, because I can tell you right now that Ron's been a champion behind me for keeping this moving forward. So Ron, thank you for that. And when it comes to cost, I mean, and you all know, cost is a huge factor. Cost comes down to what more the taxpayer is going to be charged to have if it's a public run facility by, say, the county. We are looking, and Barbara kind of touched on this a little bit. We are always looking for other opportunities for our recycling facility that Ron had hinted on. We're looking at a grant right now for $1.7 million through the EPA. We're always going to look for those grant opportunities. The thing with, say, Ulster County, and I know Ulster County and Tracy can jump in on this as well. The county runs everything. That it's the Ulster County Recovery, I think it's authority. It's a entity that, yes, it's under the county, but it's run by this authority, and they do everything. There's no private haulers, or the private haulers, when they pick up there, have to bring everything to that facility. All the composting, if they're bringing it, has to come to that facility. They don't, the only hauling that they have is any of their solid waste gets hauled out to Seneca Meadows or something like that. So they control it all. That's the difference in Warren County, because we have all the transfer stations, and the county participates, helps the transfer stations out with containers, but we don't have a stake in the game when it comes to each one of the transfer stations. We're trying to lead towards that direction of being involved a lot more. But again, that's the difference with looking at Ulster County to us, is they have an authority and they control all the solid waste, all the recycling, everything with the county. We don't. The towns do it as well, but we're working with the towns. I didn't see Diane here tonight or Mary Beth, but I think they've been helping us a lot, or getting the transfer stations kind of back on a track, saying, hey, they could do this, they could do that. And they went around and looked at all the transfer stations last year and came back with a report to our committee. So I want everybody to be aware we are, and again, I thank Ron for championing us, but we are moving in this direction. I know some would like it to happen yesterday, but it's a process, and we'll get there. And I think as Barbara hinted to, there's a lot of funding out there. The issue with the funding is that it typically is to a municipality and not a private organization. But then that's where, again, and Barbara and I have been talking about this for the last couple of years, is a public-private partnership might be the best route for us to go, because we can get the grant funding and we can help the private entities, whether it be a parcel of land that the county has, or, as Barbara said, something like startup costs or something like that. So thank you, Katrina.
Thank you, Kevin. I don't see anybody else with their hand up. Anybody else in the room have any comments or questions?
No, I think we're all set.
Okay. I'll take this opportunity just to encourage you again. Moira, I do see your name up, so I'll go to you next. But I'll take this opportunity to encourage you, your neighbors, to fill out the survey, whether you compost right now or not. We're interested in your thoughts and perspectives. In particular, we're interested in hearing from people who don't compost right now for whatever reason, and what those factors might be, and whether they would be interested in a program. Moira, go ahead, unmute yourself.
Thanks. Thank you, Kevin, for clarifying something about how individual municipalities within Warren County would participate with the program. for a centralized area someplace in Warren County that could be at quite a distance from some of the local municipalities. So my question would be, would each municipality have to apply for their own grant to get revenue to be able to haul compost down to a central location? Or would somehow Warren County mandate the municipalities to accept food scraps and yard waste?
Well, first of all, the county will never mandate that of any of the towns, because I don't think that would work. I think the county, and that's what we're trying to do, if what comes out of this plan is that maybe a public-private partnership, I think the county would facilitate any of that grant funding, and we wouldn't put that onus on the towns.
So in other words, the towns could receive revenue or funding from Warren County, each municipality, to
Well,
be able to participate?
And again, it depends on what comes out of the plan. But I think if we're talking about a central facility, and if the county was kind of the lead on this, I think we would have to figure out a way to haul. And we're looking at that now in other aspects of hauling for the towns, because they're paying so much for hauling. So I don't necessarily want to say they would receive the grant funding or revenue from it. We would be, if that's what worked out to be, that we were the kind of the lead on this, that the county would be the ones to haul the material. Maybe it would still come through the transfer stations, and then we would pick it up and bring it to this facility.
Oh, okay.
Okay, thanks for that, Moira. And I've got one other person on Zoom that I think will finish off tonight. Teresa, go ahead. And
Thank you.
Am I pronouncing your name correctly?
It's Therese, but it's fine.
Therese.
So you mentioned that 80 people filled out the survey, and you want more. And I don't know what your distribution was in terms of getting the word out, but I saw this embedded in the Warren County Weekly News. And I was just wondering if there were other avenues. Obviously, there were probably other avenues that you took to get the word out. But maybe just resend it again, in the Weekly News, because I think it's really important that people take the survey.
Yeah, we're actually going to be talking about that with the advisory committee tomorrow, and getting some ideas there, because I think you're right. We'll have to do another push to get more responses. So we'll definitely take that feedback back to the group and to the county to put it in the Weekly News again. We'll consider that.
Yeah, and I think to add to that,
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I know that the county's communications specialist has been reaching out through the Facebook group, through the county's website and other social media. So trying to get the message out there.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Kevin, if there's no one else in the room with comments, I'll go to you one more time.
Nope, we're all set. Thank you, Katrina.
Okay, great. So thank you again, everybody, for coming and providing your perspectives. I didn't mention this, but if you saw that McKenna on the screen there from GHG, she has been taking notes. Of course, tonight was recorded as well, so we've got that. The point of tonight was to get your input so that can inform the ultimate plan. So again, thank you again for that. I'll just go back to the last slide. Because you'll be hearing from us again sometime in May or June with that final draft plan. So again, thank you. Fill out the survey, and we look forward to speaking to you again in a couple of months. And have a great rest of the evening, everyone.
Thank you. And thank you, David.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good evening.